Hello, everybody. Welcome to our recap of WWE Money in the Bank. It's John Pollock and Jimmy Corderas coming out of a pretty hot crowd in Columbus, Ohio. I mean, Corpus Christi, they kind of set the standard, and Columbus kind of overachieved, I guess, on Sunday night.
No, they were really hot. I mean, obviously, at the end there, they seemed to be getting a little tired, but still, even at the end of the main event, they were starting to come with it.
Well, it was interesting. We got a call on the loss Sunday night from someone who was at the arena and noted that during the main event, whether they had some technical problem, but the Titantron went to just a animation of the Money in the Bank logo, right, whereas all night they had been showing all of the action. And when you consider the fact Rollins and Ambrose, they were going into the crowd, a lot of stuff around the ring, that does somewhat explain maybe the crowd being a bit more subdued. On top of that, these guys, quite the pace they went at for 35 minutes. I mean, by WWE standards, a pretty lengthy match. And I thought as a whole, they did a fairly good job of keeping people's interest throughout a 35-minute match.
Yeah, it's tough, especially considering you had I don't want to say similar because it was a multi-man ladder match earlier in the evening. It's hard when you have two similar matches on the same card. We've talked about that before, John. But I like the pacing of this match. Like you said, it instead of getting totally ridiculous and just, crash and burn for the sake of crash and burn, the match actually told a story. And, God forbid you do that in today's day and age to get over. But it made sense, Seth Rollins working on Dean Ambrose's leg, trying to prevent him from being able to climb the ladder. It's a simple story that still works.
Yeah, and I know the immediate reaction was almost like a groan at the finish, that, they're going to do some kind of disputed finish. But the fact it was like this struggle, this tug of war, but they gave you the winner. I mean, Seth Rollins got the win, and it was like barely escaping by the skin of his teeth with the title. I kind of liked the finish, the way it was done. I thought they wanted to... It feels like this is the end of the feud between these two, at least for now. Ambrose, I think, kind of gains a little bit out of this feud. Certainly, for those that were criticizing a couple months back where he was a back burner character and just kind of staying in place in the middle of the card, I think he has somewhat benefited from this.
Absolutely. And unfortunately, this was after they went off the air for the pay-per-view. But if you go to the website, you could see the WWE exclusive post-match promo by Dean Ambrose. And it felt heartfelt. You know what I mean? It didn't seem like one of the standard scripted promos, so to speak. It sounded like he was speaking from the heart, and it works for him. That's the Dean Ambrose. If going forward, if that's the Dean Ambrose we're going to get, then I'm on board.
Yes. So Seth Rollins now moves on. We know Brock Lesnar is coming back to television, advertised for a ton of dates. Would that seem to be the focus you assume for Battleground, Rollins and Lesnar?
It makes sense because, obviously they left it kind of hanging with Brock Lesnar's suspension.
Yeah, they have to address that.
Yeah, so they got to get around that somehow. I don't know how they do it, but...
they didn't go with your plan.
Well, that's okay. I mean, I'm just
hold the briefcase ransom. I guess
he still could, technically. We're doing this before Monday Night Raw, so what if Sheamus comes out with a briefcase? He blindsides Sheamus, takes it, and says...
As long as we don't get Brock Lesnar on Instagram on Bourbon Street. I'm fine with that.
Or I don't want to see the Money in the Bank briefcase in Brock Lesnar's fridge.
That too. Yeah. Well, by the time you're seeing this, perhaps you've already seen the return of Brock Lesnar, but that appears to be the plan for July with Rollins and Lesnar. And one other thing is, so much of this particular match was built around Seth Rollins getting this done on his own. And I thought this suggested that Seth Rollins would have his own ace up his sleeve, whether it be a big show, somebody else getting involved. There was no other involvement. He did get this done, and I think that they are trying to move Seth Rollins forward, kind of a bit out of just the cowardly heel who just escapes with the title, and trying to put Rollins at a different main event level, which were growing pains that Triple H went through, and the Mick Foley program kind of took him to that level. I don't think Seth Rollins is over to that degree yet, but they did make a step forward, I think, with this program.
Absolutely, and especially like you said, moving forward, if it's going to be a program with Brock Lesnar next,
you need to make him very credible.
Exactly, and I think this match did that. The only thing missing, I thought, was with the finish was maybe they needed Chris Berman out there to start screaming out, "It's a fumble!" or something like that. But again, I like the match. I like the pacing. It was different from what we've seen in past ladder matches. And I think the era of, crazy, ridiculous kill yourself for the sake of killing yourself is done.
Yeah, I think we hit a certain boiling point when Joey Mercury nearly lost his face during that one teeter-totter spot way back in 2006. But let's compare it to the other ladder match. 7 people going for the Money in the Bank briefcase. It was a surprise to most people, Sheamus getting the win. I kind of had it indicated to me on Sunday that they did have an original plan in place, which for whatever reasons fell apart, and Sheamus was not the original plan, but they did change it in the last couple of days. So your thoughts on Sheamus and kind of where they go from here, because he was certainly not most people's pick going into this.
Yeah, at first, initial reaction when I saw it, I was a little surprised, and I thought, okay, where's the benefit of having Sheamus as Money in the Bank briefcase holder as opposed to a Roman Reigns who is in the process of rebuilding that momentum that he seems to be getting back since WrestleMania. You obviously lost it at the Royal
Rumble. A lot of boos on Sunday for the man.
Yeah, it's still.
But I think he's almost at that place now where for those big pay-per-views where it's in particular a northeastern crowd, it's kind of now part of the show, much like Cena, where they're just going to be anti-Roman Reigns, and I think that's just a certain part people are going to expect at this point. It's just how they're going to treat Roman Reigns.
Right, but as far as Sheamus as Money in the Bank briefcase holder, I like his return. I'm liking, obviously, the look. He looks kind of ridiculous, let's be honest, but still, he's a heel. He's supposed to look ridiculous. He's supposed to be a bully. He's supposed to be a bad guy, and I like the fact that the Money in the Bank briefcase is on a heel. I like the anticipation of when they cash in, as opposed to you have more options with creativity. With the heel as the Money in the Bank briefcase holder and the question mark of when he may cash in, as opposed to, let's say, if Roman Reigns was the guy to win the briefcase, he's holding the briefcase and he calls his shot.
Right.
There's no, okay, he's going to call a shot at SummerSlam or Survivor Series or Royal Rumble, whatever it may be. That's,
Yeah, it also, personally, going through all the scenarios in my head, I thought that there were a lot of avenues you could go with Roman Reigns. There is a certain immediacy, though, if you were to put it on Reigns, that if you're not planning to put the title back on him or do that match immediately, it's kind of like, why is this babyface who is supposed to be able to, at the drop of a hat, be able to fight, and he's holding on to this for so long, for a prolonged period of time. So
absolutely,
it may have been an option just to go the Sheamus direction, and they can make their plans down the road. They might not even know what they're going to do with Sheamus, whether he's going to be a Dolph Ziggler-like cash-in or if he'll be a Damian Sandow.
Yeah, they got 1 year, 1 year to figure it out.
Also on the card, we had the rematch between John Cena and Kevin Owens. Certainly the crowd made a big difference here. I mean, that was the most notable difference. Both matches, tremendous. I like this one a bit more. They did have a bit of a hiccup with the code red spot, but I just overall enjoyed this match so much. I thought it was great, and even with Cena going over, they did such a great job with Kevin Owens, where he feels he's on the level of John Cena. They did the big angle at the end, so this feud is going to continue. I think if you were going to beat Kevin Owens, this was about as great a job as you could do if you're a big Kevin Owens fan and knowing that this guy is a priority.
Absolutely, and for all those people out there who seem to think, well, John Cena just buried Kevin Owens. No, he did not. Kevin Owens...
You don't know what the definition of burying is.
Yeah, exactly. And in old school parlance? Is that the term?
Parlance.
Parlance? Is that how it's
vernacular.
Vernacular. Let's go with vernacular. He got his heat back at the end, and that's what counts. And you talk about coming back so soon with that match, which I was skeptical about. I think you were too as well.
Yep.
Coming back so soon, and how could they top a great match that they had? I hearken it back to the WrestleMania matches between The Undertaker and HBK. I'm not comparing them. I'm just saying...
you're going to upset everybody.
I know, but so send the letters, whatever. I don't care. But what I'm trying to say is, after the first Undertaker-HBK match at WrestleMania 25, I believe it was, people said the rematch the next year, there is absolutely no way on God's green earth that these guys are going to top what they did last year. And in my opinion, it was a little bit of a different match and arguably better.
Yeah, you could debate those two, and for The Undertaker as well, the next 2 years with Triple H, you could debate those two matches too. I mean, those were 4 consecutive Undertaker matches at Mania that were phenomenal.
Yeah, and going back to John Cena and Kevin Owens, like you said, feels like he's on a same level, on a same playing field, on a par with John Cena, who's the face of the company, and continuing this rivalry going on for how long? I'm cool with it.
Yeah, you've now introduced the injury angle at the end that I hope they play up and get that significance over. I mean, we just saw Sami Zayn take this, and he's going to be out for months.
Right.
So I don't expect Cena to be out for months or even any time, but at least sell the significance of that, because you now have 5 weeks until Battleground, and not to sell the WWE team short, but when they have a long time to build a show, that's a lot of television to fill in that time, and I hope that a lot of times less is more, and they've got a lot of hours to fill to build up to what I presume will be the third match at Battleground.
Right, and you know what? There's an argument to be made. You don't want to keep Cena off TV because he is the face of the company, but keeping him off for a week or two, I don't think is a bad deal. I think that's actually okay, and it also opens up opportunity for others to shine.
Well, it opens up your options in terms of a third match. That if on Raw we have John Cena by satellite, he's got this back injury, and now we're aware that his back is a big problem going into this third match, that you can work this match around, have a different story to tell rather than just hitting all your moves on each guy and it's going back and forth. Now you have a story you can tell, and if John Cena can overcome the injury, it opens it up.
Right. And going back to the match, because somebody mentioned to me on Twitter how the Kevin Owens-John Cena match felt like an ROH style match, and I kind of get where they're coming from, but I totally disagree with that. There were elements in the sense that, we go back to what we talked about before, what you actually brought up about kicking out of someone's finish multiple times. And that kind of style I see lending itself more to that kind of ROH style. But as far as the body of the match and the pacing of the match and slowing down and the way John Cena sold for Kevin Owens to get Kevin Owens' offense over, that is completely different from that other style.
Well, and it was also, John Cena constantly getting frustrated when he thinks he has won the match. That added something to it as well, just kind of putting it over that, man, what can I do to beat this guy? I thought they put just a lot of emphasis on Kevin Owens, and he that was about as protected as you can be, losing a match clean to John Cena. And I think everything about that match, as your takeaway, was, man, they have a lot of plans for Kevin Owens, and he is a priority on this roster. Let's also chat about some of the other matches that went down on Sunday night. We had Nikki Bella defeating Paige after the twin magic almost backfired, but then it happened. Jimmy, as an official, what was going on here? Not grounds for a DQ?
Well, if you look at it from a technical standpoint, if we're going to go by the letter of the law, it should have been a DQ. And, people will say, well, it was Paige who initiated the contact by bringing the wrong Bella into the ring. But still, there was a roll-up. She attempted a roll-up, and you end up finding out that it's the wrong Bella. That's a DQ. Now, the restarting of the match, that's, I guess, a little bit of an ode to the old Dusty finish, kind of, sort of, but not really.
Yeah, tease the title change. We don't get the title change, and probably program continues with Paige.
Yeah.
I thought for sure when she was dedicating the match to Dusty, I thought for sure we're getting the title change here. Not the case. And then Intercontinental title match, Ryback and the Big Show. Jimmy, I have watched a lot of professional wrestling, and I have watched a lot of introductions of submission holds. Never have I seen an armbar applied to this degree, which Ryback applied to the Big Show. I would retire that one if I was Ryback.
Maybe put that one back in the bag. He's definitely not Alberto Del Ryback, that's for sure.
No, he is not.
No.
Not the best of matches on this particular show. And then The Miz getting involved with the DQ finish. It seems like they didn't really have much of an out for this particular match, so they went with the blatant interference, and this was grounds for a disqualification.
And just to play devil's advocate here, I didn't like the fact that he attacked the Big Show. You can accomplish the same thing by him attacking Ryback. Why would he attack the Big Show if he's been afraid of the Big Show for so long, and he's a heel and he's supposed to be a chicken you-know-what heel? Why would you? I don't know.
Well, sit back. What a three-way program we've got coming up for the Intercontinental title. Tag title change, the Primetime Players defeating Xavier Woods and Big E. I think this is just a numbers game in terms of just with Tyson Kidd going down with that neck injury, and Cesaro kind of, you don't know where he's going to fit in with Kidd's injury. There's not a whole lot of babyface opponents for them, and they flip the titles over to the Primetime Players. I assume they're going to feud back and forth at this point, and short match, primetime players winning the tag titles, probably surprising to some, but I don't think this is going to push the New Day back at all. I think they're going to still be involved.
Yeah, I just would have liked to seen a little bit of longer title run for the New Day. I thought they were just starting to really click as antagonists to the audience. I mean, they were that whole New Day rocks / New Day sucks stuff was really, really starting to get over. I just wish it was given a little more time to breathe. I like the primetime players. I don't have a problem with it. I think Titus O'Neil has got some definite upside. But you can make an argument that it was a little too soon to pull the rug out from them. I just hope it's not one of those hot potato situations where they're just a placeholder because we have another...
Oh, Jimmy, these tag titles will bounce back and forth 5 times before the end of the summer.
Yeah, probably.
Finally, before we end off, certainly an overall theme to Sunday night was the passing of Dusty Rhodes. They had a great video package for Dusty, and obviously lots of people moved by him, working so closely with all of the talent in NXT as he had been for the last number of years. Just some of your own memories of Dusty Rhodes, Jimmy, because this was one that... It's incredible, just the amount of people he worked with, tying in so many different generations from, debuting in, 69 right up until the present, being involved in the industry for all of these decades.
I mean, I became a Dusty Rhodes fan way back when. I mean, back in the tape trading days, I used to get the old Georgia Championship Wrestling tapes. I'd see some stuff from Florida Championship Wrestling, which I really enjoyed, and especially Mid-Atlantic, because Mid-Atlantic Wrestling was one I really... But I was fortunate enough to get to work with Dusty early on when he wore the polka dots, and his attitude was infectious. I mean, people talk about, Vince put him in that polka dot thing, but he did it with a smile on his face. He did it, and he made it work, I think. And then later on, when he came back to the WWE more in a creative role and as a mentor and a teacher, that's when you really got to see the real Dusty Rhodes and the real man that he was, and it was unbelievably. I can't put into words. Just being around him and listening to stories and listening to his creative process and the way he expressed himself, it was fantastic. It was fantastic, and you couldn't help but learn every time he opened his mouth.
Yeah, I mean, just so many different areas you can look at from, in the ring, his promos, his booking, and someone that adapted throughout all of these different generations. Yes. I mean, for a guy that, really made his mark with those promos that are so synonymous, whether they be in Florida, in Mid-Atlantic, in Georgia Championship Wrestling, all over the place, and then to come into this system where it's a very different game. A lot of these talents who are coming up and they don't have the same freedoms, and he could kind of be that person to, allow these performers to find their voice in an environment where a lot of them are scripted, and how you can get that personality across and kind of bridge many different generations together. Yeah. It's just super popular guy amongst the younger talent.
Absolutely. And as a guy who, let's face it, didn't look like your prototypical athlete, he can go in the ring, but he was first and foremost, and people hate the word sports entertainer, but that's exactly what he was. He was a guy who could engage the audience, at the drop of a dime. Yeah, he had that magic.
And for all the people who talked about him in the ring, I mean, this was a guy that, whether it was his selling and knowing the exact perfect time to make that big comeback, and did it in such a way that, I mean, you just listen to the reactions when he was making that big comeback against Ric Flair, or whether it was just with any litany of opponents, with Terry Funk, with Superstar Billy Graham. I mean, probably the best matches of Superstar Billy Graham's career were there in the Northeast, in the WWF, with their bull rope matches, their Texas death matches. I mean, the guy had a quality body of work inside of the ring to couple the promos that built up those matches.
Yes, and he also understood the fact that over the years the business had evolved and changed, and he was able to adapt and still be a guy who had his finger on the pulse of what the audience was responding to. Whereas I'm not to criticize others, but some guys still, they consider themselves old school and just can't move forward, so to speak. Dusty was not only moving forward, he was moving ahead of the curve.
Well, and it's a big leap for a lot of guys because you go watch, some of those tapes from the 70s to today. It's a drastically different industry, and there's a lot of people who are ingrained with that style of wrestling versus today, and it's just a leap not a lot of guys could make. But Dusty Rhodes was proactive in adjusting himself into today's marketplace, and I'm sure he had disagreements with the current product, but how can we make this work for this environment with this talent who have grown up on this, and we're presenting this product. So, I mean, those kinds of minds, they're in short supply, and it's a major loss for the industry. Just people like Dusty Rhodes, who, I mean, just such a wealth of knowledge that you lose when a guy of this nature passes away. Absolutely.
And you look back at Paul Heyman, and people will say that today Paul Heyman may be one of the best creative minds in the industry today, but you got to remember Paul Heyman was sitting under the Dusty Rhodes learning tree.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, that was just, it's just so funny that here we just had that Paul Heyman podcast where he's talking about that influence of Dusty. We talk about the last Elimination Chamber, which had kind of the Dusty finish with Ambrose winning the title. I mean, just all these little odes to Dusty Rhodes that are so prevalent. Final thing, anyone off the top of your head, worst Dusty impression and best Dusty impression? Because I think everyone in the industry has a Stu Hart and a Dusty Rhodes. Is there anyone that comes to mind for you, Jimmy?
Oh, man. One of the best Dusty impressions I have ever heard in my life is Bruce Pritchard.
Bruce, yeah.
Bruce nails him dead on, and it's incredible. I remember back when Dustin was doing his kind of ode to his dad with the polka dots at one point.
And he was doing the Dusty voice.
That was actually Bruce. Because if you remember, it was a black silhouette.
Right, okay.
And you heard the voice and somebody doing the promo. That was actually Bruce.
Oh, that's very interesting. But
but nailed it.
Wow.
Nailed it. As far as worst, I don't know, probably me.
Look at that. Just puts the heat on himself.
Yeah, sure.
Well, Dusty Rhodes, phenomenal performer, one of the biggest baby faces of all time, passing away at the age of 69. That's going to wrap up our look at Money in the Bank. They'll be back on Sunday, July 19th with Battleground, featuring the return of Brock Lesnar. I think we can pencil in for Battleground. For Jimmy Corderas, I am John Pollock, and thanks for watching, listening, downloading, however you watched our show today.